So thank you, Anthony, for joining us today. I'm sure we're going to have a great conversation around sort of data management. My name is Suki Dhuphar. I'm the head of international business here at Tamr. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and give your background from this particular space before we kick off into the actual conversation itself.
Yeah, thanks for that, Suki. It's great to join you this morning. So my name's Antony Marlow. I'm the Director of Data Management Practice at Cynozure. We're a data consultancy organisation. My background and passion, so I'm at that point in my career where I can measure it in multiple decades, sadly. So over 20 years in the industry, starting out as a business analyst, and that really has forged my career forward. So for me, everything we do as data professionals is about helping organisations develop some really strong capabilities to unlock value, and that's very much my career over that period.
Excellent. Yeah, great. I mean, and it's very sort of apt for what we want to talk about during this particular session. And I'm sure your sort of background and history will really help others who are watching this or listening to this, trying to sort of navigate themselves through the mire that they could be stuck in terms of data. And data is a big topic. Data and AI is a big topic right now, right? So it's that chicken and egg situation. I want to use AI. How do I use AI? I need to get data better. Like in order for it to be valuable. And I know we've had plenty of conversation around how our organizations are very much set up to make sure that our customers are getting value from their data. So just to start off there, just to set the scene.
Yes,
I'd love to understand your or get your take on how do you think people should start to work with data? How are they going to get value? Because, again, it's that situation. I can't get value until I start using the data, and I can't use the data if there's bad data quality. How do you see that, and how do you help customers navigate that particular situation to get them to a place where they're seeing value?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm sure it's the same for you, Suki, when you're engaging in conversation with any stakeholder, whether you're talking to fellow business professionals, data professionals, data leaders, or even with the business. To me, it's understanding the landscape of their industry, their opportunities and their problems. And you'll note that in all of that, I have not used the word data once. So I'm afraid it's that old tripe of let's not even talk about the data, but let's talk about the landscape and the challenges that you face. For me, that's a conversation starter. Unfortunately, I think it's recognized that data can have certain connotations in terms of people's interest. And if nothing else, it can also confuse people enormously. So let's not trip ourselves up at the beginning of those conversations. That to me is a starting point. I think secondly as well, as we engage and listen, because I think there's a really crucial role for us as being almost like therapists sometimes in the work and approach that we take in having those conversations, is that we're very much listening, actively listening, so we can pick up and talk their language, we can understand the context of the challenge. And one thing I think that we should do as data professionals, as an aside, I would say that the way I view professionalism in any organization is that we are all business people or organizational people with a certain specialist skill set. So we are the data professionals within a business context. But coming back to point, I think for me, it's then understanding that landscape and industry. So we should better understand our peers, our competitors, the wider ecosystem of how we plug in. If it's a commercial organization, truly understanding customers and suppliers and our product. And, if you probably get a little bit into strategy, thinking about the value chain of the organization, quite often I see that as a bit of a miss when I engage with various organizations in my role where I talk to data teams. They don't actually really understand how their business operates. So they're starting from a kind of position of weakness rather than get ahead of the game, meaning they drive informed conversation.
No, Anthony, I love that because it's too easy to drop into the kind of red herring of technology and data, right? Without understanding the context of how it's going to be applied, how it's going to be adopted, how it's going to be used. One of the industries, just dropping into slightly
Mm.
more specifics,
Mm.
one of the industries, and as I know both of us are pretty well versed on, and both our organizations work quite strongly with, is like the insurance business. So when
Absolutely.
we look at insurance in terms of and there are so many different factors to insurance. It's not a simple thing. I was having a conversation with James, your CTO, last week.
Mm.
And how that industry has changed, and it's always been customer focused to start with. It's a business at the end of the day. But I
Absolutely.
remember, as you say, you talk about decades. I think decades as well. And when you look at the insurance industry, it used to be to insure the biggest things, take away the biggest risks of your life, whether it's a house, whether it's a business, whether it's a shipment, and so on and so forth. Nowadays, that's gone right down to the levels of whether it's your phone, whether it's your bag, whether it's your, the smallest possible thing can be insured. But in order to do that and understand that sort of landscape of that business, I love the way you think about it. Understand the entire landscape, and then think about how do you solve that particular challenge through different processes, but try and get value on the way on each and every single one of the things that people want to achieve. Attach a value item to it. The success factor of achieving an outcome is really, really important. So I love the way you framed that. Going into that sort of detail around, let's take insurance as an industry, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but just in more of a general sort of terms. Why do you think now is why is it so important now? Because
why now?
What exactly that? Because you're going to get confused by people chucking out terms like AI, data. We want to do this. We want chatbots in. We want all of these GPT and everything in there. That's why people are bringing technologists and experts like you and I, your organization, my organization in, but getting them back to that value proposition. Why do people need to take that action now?
Probably just paraphrasing what you've just said, I think, Suki. I mean, let's start with the hot topic of the moment, which is AI, artificial, which clearly is a massive bucket for lots of different capabilities. And I think what is becoming a recognition is that organizations have not, they've underinvested in just the efficient and effective management of data as a resource. So I think it's quite challenging because of the confusion of the concept of data. And I think we could step into the space and have steer this conversation to culture and literacy, couldn't we, as well, Suki, about a real understanding of what all this means, certainly at executive and business leadership levels, is, well, what does this mean for me? Why does it matter? But I think that spotlight of AI has shone. It's a bit like kind of looking under the carpet, isn't it? Or picking up a rock and you see a house of horrors, because you and I know some of the implications of that poor management and employing these tools, in terms of risk and issues. I mean, a classic example, again, you and I could probably relate to or have seen, is the deployment of something which should be relatively straightforward, like a co-pilot capability. It's quite low adoption levels. Organizations can buy in and secure it quickly. But if you haven't managed your data and maybe moving into kind of the context of information, such as something as simple as SharePoint and documentation, allowing a sophisticated tool to start to crawl across your landscape, and you haven't properly categorized, secured, limited access to things that are, have implications of confidentiality, commerciality, sensitivity, you're going to get some very undesirable results. So we need to get ahead of the curve.
No, I agree. I absolutely concur with you more. Tamr have been in this sort of AI space for the last 12 years, even before it became a trend. And what I would say, it wasn't just a trend. There was a lot more fear around it. Why is a machine trying to take over what I'm doing? Does it have the same control?
Yeah.
And actually, what we felt historically was, the adverse effect, where people were very scared to enter this particular market. Now we're seeing that, within a couple of years, we're just seeing the complete opposite, where people just want to throw everything towards this. And the challenge, quite rightly, as you put it, we've seen AI models hallucinate, and the reason why they hallucinate is because we've structured data badly, they've learned badly, so therefore the answers that they're going to give are only going to be based on the information that they've been provided. And if it's not organized, if it's not managed properly, that particular information, then you're likely to get incorrect sort of outcomes. And those outcomes could be very damaging to brands. It could be damaging to sort of the way people work, and that's something that obviously we need to ensure and manage. And I think as a lot of people will go around the whole AI ethics and trying to put the governance around it, but actually the governance goes down to a much more granular level, which is the data, and we've seen that. But again, all of this has to be put together for the leadership to understand the full picture and how it impacts the value chain, as opposed to, go and get your data right. And that will be, because that will be the next question, right? The next question on this is all around the data maturity. Again, I'm going to use that phrase, chicken and egg. Do I get my data into a good place and then go and work on this kind of vision that the leadership team is looking for to better my business? Or do I end up looking at, do I just chuck everything into a machine and let AI sort this out? So there's this kind of real conundrum that a lot of people get into. I'm sure you see this, especially when you look at, and then you've got the regulation around things like GDPR, around PII information, about information around things like, especially insurance. You look at vehicle information, property information, historical records, health records for health insurance. It's information rich, but there is all these challenges that come along with it. How do you find that? Where can you guys help in that particular, bringing that maturity level up for the customers and people that are going to be listening to this particular webinar?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, we're a data consultancy business, and that's everything that we focus on is all about data. Generally, we come in and support customers in a number of ways, but the two that immediately strike me on what you've just said there, Suki, is about almost like an educational coach type role where we can start to bring this to life. And that then probably bleeds into how would I recommend. So maybe skipping to where we get to at the end in our call to action, Suki, is about how the heck do I get started on some of this stuff? We've got this concept of something called leveling up framework, which is about maturity. But the real premise of that is that we suggest A, you get started, B, you start small, and also seek to do something end to end. Because again, certainly for you guys at Tamr in the technology space, this concept of trying to develop these capabilities in a waterfall fashion, which is very much boil the ocean, where organizations have invested huge amounts of resources and monies, has not led to results. Support has petered out, money has petered out. They've literally ended up trying to consume wicked problems. The way we advocate to customers is to pick something that A, is achievable with a clear defined scope that you can then utilize as a way to learn. Because I think there's very much, if you are not doing this already and you need to move into a future paradigm of developing capabilities, you are going to be learning as an organization. So that's number one. Secondly, because a lot of these concepts, certainly in certain industries, so thinking about insurance as we've talked about here, the general maturity levels in terms of data management in that industry are relatively low compared to, say, others. But they're not alone. There are other industries too. And certainly organizations, and I'm sure many of our customers collectively between us, surprising names, big companies who actually have relatively low data maturity, but are recognizing it now. So yeah, for us, our approach is thinking about that outcome, the business outcome that the organization is trying to achieve. Is it about growing the customer base in some way, securing extra revenue? The general play obviously is all around efficiency and effectiveness too. Can we increase our profitability by doing more for the same or less? Or can we simply be more effective in improving the service that we deliver to customers, for example, too? That could be a play.
Yeah, that's again, as you say, very a shared experience, right? So again, that boil the ocean. Historically, people have really looked at things like, this is where the challenge comes in the MDM space in itself, because it seems as a kind of a really large application. I need to get everything right. I need to write all these rules and get them perfectly right, because the impact of that is big, right? I'm trying to do a customer 360. I need to make sure it's accurate, because that data is going to be used across the organization with that customer 360, especially sort of in the insurance space. I'm also trying to get all the products that they bought from us, what other people have bought, what can I upsell to them in future, what are similar sort of customer demographics looking like. So everybody takes that very much, historically it has been a very much boil the ocean approach when it's come to MDM, but we're very much aligned with you. That approach has failed time and time again. So it's better to start small but valuable, and then layer in the approaches as you go along. Let's solve a problem first. Everybody's on the train with you, and then you can solve the bigger problems as you go along. So absolutely aligned with you.
I think I think we're totally aligned on that. I think the other great myth as well in some of these capabilities is that they're a panacea in some way. So AI will be a panacea. Master data management will be a panacea. And yet you and I know that the real trick and challenge, and this is the challenging part, is that as much as you are going to commission a development of something, so let's say you want to develop your data capabilities, you want to improve them, the management of your data. This is not, you might undertake a project or initiative to get started, but that's simply getting to a level where you're going to have to maintain this. And I think the real trick there to sustain the effort is about fully immersing and embedding and aligning anything to do with data to the wider organizational data operations. And that is a challenge too, isn't it? I mean, there's a great analogy that somebody told me many years ago. If you can imagine somebody stood at the bar and they're carrying like 8 pints in their hand, and you're going to walk up and say to them, "Oh, would you like a tray to help you?" And the individual goes, "No, can't you see I've already got enough to carry?" What they are missing is the fact that we're trying to give them a tool to help them in their burden. And I think that is the challenge, and equivalent to that, the challenge of what we're doing in data, certainly data management. We're not there seeking to burden people with roles, responsibilities under, say, governance for any kind of like reason which is about anointing, like in thou shalt be the king of data or whatever, the owner of data. This is probably more around, in my mind, recognizing the responsibilities, clarifying the responsibilities they probably already have. And I think the real trick in what we can do as experts is bring our familiarity and knowledge from peer organizations and clients, from other sectors who are doing this better or more advanced, so we can shortcut their, accelerate to results. I think that's what ultimately what you're buying when you come to an organization like ourselves. And then, as you know, once you've got clarity on what I'm classed as a value chain, how do you get the data created flowing efficiently across your organization? Let's say you're an insurer, so getting some great quality data, that means you can get super improved accuracy around underwriting, for example, so your pricing is very competitive. You're able to gather the information, the data very quickly, which means you're quick as well. So there's a speed to market as much as there is a pricing element to this. And then flowing that through from a people and a process perspective, the real cherry on the cake is about sticking on a technology which automates some of those kind of repetitive and mundane tasks that are better done by a machine. Those capabilities that can add some extra benefit too. So again, thinking about what you're doing, Tamr, around the fuzzy logic, because as much as data quality is always a challenge, has been for 40, 50 years, I think we're both collectively coming from the point of view which is data which is good enough, fit for purpose. We're not after 100%, accuracy or any of the dimensions of data quality. It's actually about, is it good enough to give us this satisfactory result which drives business performance? And that's where technology can help, once you've got clarity of the landscape of how this is going to work in operations.
No, again, couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the amount of times that we've come across, we need 100% accuracy. And, sure, in certain situations, regulatory situations, and whatever have you, you do need that the absolute accuracy.
Yes.
But I loved your analogy about the tray, because that's exactly who we are. We're the people saying, let's give you a tray for your data challenges, for your business challenges that you've got. And then, yes, there's going to be a moment where you're going to have to lift those glasses and put it on the tray. But actually, when you carry it, it's going to be so much easier, right? In the long run, it's going to be so much easier. A lot less wastage, a lot less spillage, a lot less accidents, less trips you have to make. So
as we're there to help. We're there to help, not to add burden. We're actually there to ease a burden, and that is the real challenge that we face as professionals, helping those data teams or the clients that we're working into, is advocating and articulating that.
No, absolutely. And I think the other point you make, which is great, it's all around actually learning from different industries. We've also learned the pitfalls. We've learned the lessons. We've learned all the things that can go wrong. So we can eradicate them next time around. This is what we learned from, let's say, banking or financial services in general, or from healthcare, or from other industries that we've worked in. And I think, as you kind of, going back to what we were saying around maturity, we can help accelerate maturity within an organization by bringing that expertise in, by bringing that knowledge in where we've seen it work, and more importantly, where it hasn't worked, where people haven't got value. And I'm sure you're similar to myself. Everything that we've learned over the period of time, what we want people to do is accelerate that maturity, so they're getting value quicker, faster, and better than before. And I'll leave it with the whole idea, of your analogy. We are like the tray, right? So we're trying to provide you the advice and what we've seen before to be able to help. Antony, it's been great talking to you, and I'm sure we can talk for hours on this particular subject. But
absolutely,
I'm sure our listeners and watchers are going to be walking away asking loads of questions, or thinking about the questions they'd love to ask us. So at the end, we'll leave information on how to contact us. Either of us, both of us together, it doesn't really matter. And hopefully we can provide other people the advice that we wish we had learned about 30 years ago or 25 years ago, which would have helped us to get, accelerate the value that we can get out for our customers, but also out of our own businesses as well. So it's been great talking to you. Would love, obviously, hopefully we can do this again. But thank you very much for having this conversation today.
No, real pleasure, Suki. Thanks for your time.